The courtroom smelled like old wood and fear, and I sat at the defendant's table with my hands shaking so badly I had to grip my knees just to keep them still, listening as the judge's voice echoed through the room, cold and final. Custody is hereby granted to the father, Kellen Monroe. My world stopped, the air left my lungs, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just heard, and then I heard it. Laughter. Kellen was laughing. Actually laughing, pumping his fist in the air like he'd just won a game, and his mother Verena clapped her hands together, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear that I was never fit to be a mother anyway. I turned to look at my daughter. Lyra sat in the back row with her small hands clutching a stuffed rabbit. She was 7 years old. Her eyes were wide and confused, darting between me and her father, and I wanted to run to her, to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't move. As the judge banged the gavel, dismissing the court, Lyra's lips moved. She was trying to tell me something. "Mommy, he doesn't know." I couldn't hear her clearly over the noise, but I saw her mouth the words, and my heart dropped even further. What didn't he know? I stood outside the courthouse, numb. People brushed past me, but I couldn't move. My lawyerette stood beside me with his face tight with frustration, telling me he was sorry, that we'd appeal, that this wasn't over, but it felt over. It felt like I'd lost everything. Kellen walked out with Lyra, holding her hand like he was some perfect father. Verena followed close behind, shooting me a satisfied smirk, and Lyra looked back at me with her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Fear maybe, sadness, something else. She mouthed those words again. He doesn't know. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but Kellen pulled her away before I could even take a step forward. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything in my mind, the trial, the lies Kellen told, the way the judge looked at me like I was some terrible mother, and Lyra's message, he doesn't know. What didn't he know? Around midnight my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You might want to request the sealed addendum. I stared at the message with my heart pounding. Sealed addendum. What was that? I texted back immediately asking who this was. No response. Just those words. Haunting, confusing, terrifying. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't stop thinking about what Lyra was trying to tell me. The next morning I called Rhett. My voice was shaky and desperate, telling him there was a sealed addendum, that someone told me to request it, and Rhett was silent for a moment before saying he didn't know anything about a sealed addendum, but would look into it. He called me back 2 hours later, and his voice was different, angry. "Amina, there was a report, a behavioral report from Lyra's school that was submitted months ago, but it was sealed. Someone blocked it from being read in trial." My stomach twisted as I asked what it said. It noted concerning changes in Lyra's emotional state after visits with Kellen. The school flagged it twice. She refused to speak about what happened at his house. I felt sick, asking why this wasn't shown in court. "Someone with legal authority deliberately suppressed it," Rhett said. "This is bad, Amina, really bad, but it might be the key to getting Lyra back." I hung up and sat in silence. My hands trembled as I processed what he'd said. Someone had hidden evidence that could have changed everything, and Lyra knew. She knew something was wrong. That's what she was trying to tell me. He doesn't know. But what didn't he know? Rhett called me into his office that afternoon. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either, telling me he needed to be honest, that he never saw that report because it was intercepted, that Kellen's attorney was notorious for burying evidence. I felt my anger rising, asking if that meant they cheated, if they lied to the court. "Essentially, yes," Rhett said, "but proving it is another matter. We need more evidence. We need something concrete." "The report was flagged twice by the school," I said. "Doesn't that mean something?" "It does, but someone desperately didn't want the court to see it. That tells me there's more going on here than just custody. Kellen is hiding something." I left his office feeling both hopeful and terrified. If we could prove Kellen had buried evidence, maybe I could get Lyra back. But what if we couldn't? What if Lyra was stuck with him forever? That evening I drove to Lyra's school. I needed to see her, to make sure she was okay, so I waited in the parking lot until classes ended, and when Lyra walked out my heart broke. She looked so small, so scared. I called her name softly. She looked up surprised and then ran to me. "Mommy," she whispered, hugging me tight. I held her close with tears streaming down my face, asking if she was okay. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. As I held Lyra, I noticed something, a bruise on her arm, dark purple and fresh, so I asked gently what happened there, pointing to it. Lyra pulled her arm away quickly, saying she fell, not meeting my eyes. Lyra, sweetheart, you can tell me the truth. I fell, Mommy, I promise. Her teacher, Mrs. Devon, walked over. She gave me a sympathetic look, asking if she could speak with me for a moment, and I nodded as Lyra stayed near the playground while Mrs. Devon pulled me aside. Lyra has been different lately, she said quietly, withdrawn, quiet. She used to be so vibrant, but now she barely speaks. Do you think something's wrong at home? I asked, my voice breaking. Mrs. Devon hesitated. I can't say for certain, but I've noticed changes, significant ones. Before I could respond, Lyra ran back to me. She handed me a folded piece of paper. I drew this for you, she said softly. I unfolded it carefully and my heart stopped. It was a drawing of a house, but the windows had bars on them, and in the center a small girl was crying. Lyra, I whispered, what is this? She didn't answer. She just hugged me tighter, and I knew then. Something terrible was happening at Kellen's house, and Lyra was too scared to tell me. Over the next few days, Kellen's social media became unbearable. He posted photos of himself with Lyra with captions like, finally got my daughter back and real fathers step up, and his new girlfriend Celise was even worse. Posting vlogs mocking deadbeat moms and praising Kellen as the world's best dad. It made me sick, but I couldn't look away. Then one evening, I received a message from an anonymous account. It contained screenshots of private messages between Celise and her friends. In one, she complained that Kellen left Lyra alone for hours while he went out drinking. In another, she mentioned how Lyra cried herself to sleep most nights. But the worst one was a photo. Lyra sleeping on the floor of Kellen's apartment. No blanket, no pillow, just the hard, cold floor. I stared at the image with my hands shaking with rage. How could he do this to her? I forwarded everything to Rhett immediately, and he responded within minutes saying this is good, but we need more, asking if I could find out who sent this. I tried, but the account had been deleted. Still, I saved every screenshot, every piece of evidence, because I was going to fight, and I was going to win. A few days later, I received another message, this time from someone named Nara. I'm Celise's younger sister. The message read, I need to talk to you. It's about Lyra. My heart raced, and I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe across town. Nara was young, maybe 19. She looked nervous, glancing around like she was afraid someone might see us. Kellen is not who he pretends to be, she said quietly. He's neglectful, and there's something else, something worse. What? I asked, leaning forward. Lyra's been trying to tell you something only you would understand. It's about her medical condition. My blood ran cold. What medical condition? I don't know exactly, Nara said, but Celise mentioned it once. She said Kellen doesn't take it seriously, that he forgets about it. Suddenly, it all came rushing back. Lyra's breathing disorder, the rare nighttime condition she'd had since infancy. If she didn't use her breathing device, if she slept on the floor or in an unsafe position, it could be deadly. Oh my God, I whispered. He doesn't know. That's what she was trying to tell me. He forgot about her condition. Nara nodded. You need to do something, fast. I left the cafe in a panic. I tried calling Kellen with no answer. I called again and again. Nothing. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Lyra's breathing disorder. When she was a baby, doctors told me she had sleep apnea, a rare form that required a special device to keep her airways open at night, and Kellen used to ignore it. He'd say I was overreacting, that doctors were too cautious. He never wanted to deal with the device, the appointments, the late-night monitoring, but I did. I kept her safe. I made sure she had everything she needed. Now Lyra was with him, and he'd forgotten, or worse, he didn't care. I called him again. Still no answer, so I called Verena, and she picked up with her voice dripping with annoyance. What do you want, Amina? I need to talk to Kellen. It's about Lyra's medical condition. It's urgent. She's fine, Verena snapped. Stop being dramatic. Verena, please. This is serious. She needs her breathing device at night. If she doesn't have it, Kellen knows how to take care of his daughter. Verena interrupted. Unlike you. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling completely helpless, and then at 11:47 p.m. my phone rang, an unknown number. Ms. Monroe, a woman's voice said, "This is the neighbor next door to Kellen's apartment. Your daughter had a breathing episode tonight. The paramedics just left." My world shattered. I drove to Kellen's apartment faster than I've ever driven in my life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, and when I arrived, Verena was standing at the door with her arms crossed. "You're not coming in," she said coldly. "Where's Lyra?" I demanded. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, you're overreacting." "I'm not overreacting, she had a breathing episode." Before Verena could respond, a paramedic walked out of the apartment. He looked tired and concerned, asking if I was the mother. Verena didn't answer, so I stepped forward. "Yes, I'm her mother. Is she okay?" The paramedic nodded slowly. "She's stable now, but I have to ask, why wasn't her breathing device plugged in?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "The device wasn't set up properly. She was sleeping on the floor without it. If the neighbor hadn't called, this could have been much worse." I felt like I was going to be sick. I pushed past Verena and ran inside to find Lyra sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket with her face pale, and when she saw me, she started crying. "Mommy," she sobbed. I held her tight with tears streaming down my face. "I'm here, baby, I'm here." Kellen wasn't even home. Kellen finally showed up 30 minutes later looking annoyed, like this whole thing was an inconvenience. "What are you doing here?" he asked, glaring at me. "Your daughter almost died tonight," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Where were you?" "I was out. Verena was watching her." "Verena didn't know about her breathing device. You didn't set it up." "This is your fault," Kellen snapped. "You're staging this whole thing to make me look bad." I stared at him in disbelief. "Staging?" She stopped breathing. "Kellen, you're manipulating everyone. You always do." Verena stepped between us. "Get out, Amina, before I call the police." "Call them," I said, "because I'm calling my lawyer and I'm getting my daughter back." I left with Lyra's breathing device in my hands. The paramedic had given it to me saying it was unsafe to leave it there, and Rhett called me the next morning telling me this changes everything, that we can file for an emergency custody reversal. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. A judge agreed to reopen the case, and I sat in Rhett's office with relief washing over me. "This is it," Rhett said. "This is our chance." Kellen exploded when he found out. He called me screaming about how I was manipulating the system, how I was a terrible mother, how I'd never win, and I hung up on him. The judge ordered a surprise home evaluation of Kellen's apartment, and when I heard that, I almost cried with relief. For the first time, Kellen's confidence wavered. I saw it in his eyes during the hearing. He wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't laughing. He was scared, and he should be. The home evaluation was a disaster for Kellen. The evaluator found unsafe conditions, no proper bed for Lyra, expired food in the fridge, and no sign of her breathing device being used. Celeste accidentally admitted that Kellen left Lyra with Verena most nights while he went out, and the evaluator dug deeper. She asked Verena about her health, her mental state. Verena tried to lie, but the evaluator saw through it. "Mrs. Monroe, are you currently on medication for anxiety and depression?" Verena hesitated. "Yes, but I'm fine." "Have you missed doses recently?" "Maybe once or twice." The evaluator made notes. "You're not mentally stable to supervise a child unsupervised." Kellen's face went pale. Then the evaluator asked for Lyra's personal belongings. She wanted to check for emotional cues, asking where she keeps her things. Kellen pointed to a small corner of the living room, a pile of clothes and toys, and the evaluator frowned. "This is where she sleeps?" Kellen didn't answer. The evaluator found something else, a small journal hidden beneath a loose plank in the corner where Lyra kept her things. She opened it carefully, flipping through the pages, and her expression changed, hardened. "I need to submit this as evidence," she said quietly. Later, Rhett showed me the journal, and my hands shook as I read Lyra's entries. "I'm scared of the shouting. Daddy locks me in my room when he's mad." And then the line that broke me. Daddy said if I tell Mommy, she'll disappear. I couldn't breathe. Tears streamed down my face. "He threatened her," I whispered. "He threatened our daughter to keep her quiet." Rhett nodded grimly. "This is enough, Amina. This is more than enough." I realized then that he doesn't know wasn't about her medical condition. It was about the journal, Kellen didn't know Lyra had been writing everything down. She'd been documenting her own abuse. I recognized that phrase immediately, "You'll disappear." Kellen used to say it to me during our marriage, when I tried to leave, when I tried to stand up for myself. "If you leave me, you'll disappear. No one will believe you. No one will care." He'd repeated it so many times I'd almost believed him, and now he was saying it to Lyra. Rhett made another discovery. A neighbor had filed a police complaint months earlier about loud fighting and a child crying, telling me the neighbor is willing to testify. Everything was coming together, slowly, painfully, but it was happening. Kellen started showing up at my work. He'd wait outside, begging me to stop the campaign against him. "You're ruining my life," he said, his voice cracking. "You did this to yourself," I replied calmly. "If I go down, I'll take you with me," he threatened, but his charm was cracking. His mask was slipping. People could see him for what he really was. Then he admitted something that shocked me. "Celise is leaving me. She's scared of me." I didn't respond. I just walked away, because I knew he was losing everything and he deserved it. Celise contacted me a few days later. She was nervous and apologetic. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have seen it sooner." She handed me her phone. I recorded him. I have proof. I listened to the recordings and my blood ran cold. Kellen drunk, admitting he left Lyra alone for hours. Kellen laughing about how easy it was to manipulate the court. And then Verina's voice. "Let her collapse. Amina will get the blame." They'd planned this. They'd wanted Lyra to get hurt so they could blame me. Rhett called it game-changing evidence. I called it evil. The courtroom was packed. Kellen sat at his table trying to look calm, but I could see the panic in his eyes, and Rhett stood up and presented the recordings. The room went silent as Kellen's voice played over the speakers. Gasps filled the courtroom. Even the judge looked shocked. The school report was buried by Kellen's attorney. Rhett announced that attorney is now under investigation. Kellen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. "Mr. Monroe, step down from the stand." Kellen stood, but his legs were shaking. Celise took the stand. She was nervous but determined, and she told the court everything: Kellen's temper, his neglect, his manipulation. Verina tried to interrupt, screaming that Celise was lying, and the judge ordered her removed for contempt. Security escorted her out, still screaming. The judge turned to Rhett asking if he had any other evidence. "Yes, Your Honor, Lyra's journal." The room fell silent. The judge read Lyra's journal aloud, every word, every heartbreaking entry, and the room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Even Kellen lowered his head. When the judge finished, she closed the journal carefully. "Mr. Monroe, you will undergo a psychological evaluation before any further proceedings." Kellen's face went pale. The psychological evaluation revealed everything: coercive control, narcissistic tendencies, unstable anger responses. "He is dangerous for a child," the evaluator concluded, and she recommended Kellen lose custody immediately. The judge scheduled a final ruling. Kellen showed up at my house that night, unannounced and furious. "Withdraw your petition," he demanded. I called Rhett, who arrived with police, and the officer's body cameras captured everything: Kellen admitting he never wanted custody, that he only fought for it to punish me. It was over. In court, the footage played. Kellen looked unhinged, shouting that I belonged below him. Verina collapsed in tears, not out of guilt, but because Kellen's downfall threatened her financially, and the judge prepared the final ruling. Custody is hereby granted to the mother, Amina Monroe. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I'd won. Kellen was given supervised visitation only pending further review, and the judge scolded him for weaponizing the legal system. Outside, Kellen tried to speak to me, but I walked past him without a word. Kellen called me later that night, and his voice was broken. "I'm sorry," he said. "Please, give me another chance." "No," I said calmly. "You forgot one thing, Kellen. The one thing that mattered most." "What?" "Lyra's breathing condition. You forgot, and because of that she almost died." He broke down. "I didn't mean, you never meant anything," I said. "Goodbye, Kellen." I hung up. That night I set up Lyra's breathing device in her room. We ate dinner together, laughed, cried, and she looked at me and said, "Mommy, I can breathe with you." I held her close with tears streaming down my face. Later, a welfare officer called. Kellen might face charges for evidence suppression and child endangerment, and I looked out the window, no longer afraid, no longer broken. I was finally free, and so was Lyra.